I fixed it.
You can stop whenever.
Stop.
Okay. Now see, since he only gave 2 points, Shelby's speech is going to be a lot easier because she only has to talk about 2 different things. Okay? So all she's going to do is refute what he just said. Oh wait, I'm going to ask a question.
Wait, wouldn't he ask the questions? Since
Yeah, he would, but I'm just asking everyone the questions. But technically, yes, he would ask you questions. Okay, ready? Okay. Have you ever waken up late and still been tired?
No.
All right.
That's kind of a personal question.
Yeah, it is. Okay.
Fail.
You said that sometimes we forget to do our homework and that some people like to do it in the morning. Does that mean that just because someone likes something, we should change the code of conduct for every single student? What about those kids who don't like to do their homework in the morning?
I believe there's some kids that
Damn, they're loud.
Now see, that was kind
Excuse
of
me.
like a trick question. Like, lots of kids will ask you really dumb questions. So what I basically just asked you is, why do we all have to do our homework in the morning? And you could just say, kids can still do it at night. Like, you're not just doing it in the morning, you know? So just make sure you catch like those really, really dumb questions, because in novice debate, you're gonna get a ton of dumb questions. And just make sure you like.
She knows
try
from
and catch
experience.
them. Yeah, I asked a lot of dumb questions my novice
She still
year.
does.
I still ask really dumb questions.
She's still going to.
Okay, Shelby, you ready? Okay, and
some kids do
hello.
but it's their responsibility, and if they don't have responsibility, they're just gonna get bad grades or do that good. 7 is 7 o'clock. It's the same, but it might feel different because it's going into a later time during the day, so people might feel really tired. Most kids don't like doing homework when they wake up because they like to have a lot of time to get ready for school. Some girls like to look pretty.
Okay. Now I'm gonna ask you questions. And this will be the last thing we do, and then we're gonna talk about like 3 things really fast, and then we're gonna go up back to the weight room. Okay, ready? So you mentioned that girls like to look pretty sometimes. Now, what about the male population? Do they like to spend all their time in the morning getting ready for school? No?
Yes.
Okay, so basically the negative team is just advocating for the female side, right? Good answer. Okay. What else? Okay, so you say that it's the kids' responsibility to remember to do their homework, right? Well, can't they just remember to do it in the morning?
Because whenever I wake up in the morning, I kind of forget things that happened last time.
Nice. Okay. Now everyone can go back to their regular seats, and we're done with that activity.
Is that it?
Now I'm just gonna tell them what inherency and solvency and advantages are, and then that's it. But that'll be really short. So.
Okay.
Okay. You can, yeah, go back down there. You too. We're almost done, guys.
It's fine. It's fine.
Oh, I had it. It was starting.
You think you have it, but you don't.
Is everyone good?
I'm good.
Okay. Now, there are virtually 3 parts to every debate case. There is inherency, so write down inherency. That is I-N-H-E-R-E-N-C-Y. Inherency.
Can we say that again?
Yeah. I-N-H-E-R-E-N-C-Y. Now, inherency is the status quo. Now, when I was a novice, they told me it's the status quo. And I'm like, oh yeah, okay, status quo. And then I get home and I'm like, I have no idea what the status quo is. So the status quo is basically what's currently happening. So an example of this for our topic is like the affirmative team would bring up, the status quo is not right because we're not sending money to Cuba right now. But then, like, if you're advocating for the status quo, you would say something along the lines of, we actually are already sending money to Cuba, therefore there is no inherency. We're already doing the plan. So does anyone have a question on inherency? Of like, it's what's currently happening in the United States. Yes.
Like it's like after that High School Musical, where like he's like a basketball player and he says he likes to bake, and that's like
Yeah. So like in High School Musical, there's a social order, or the status quo of high school, where the jocks hang out with the jocks and the cheerleaders hang out with the cheerleaders. And you can kind of look at debate like that also. Like the status quo means we shouldn't change anything, okay? Or well, the status quo is like what's normal for the United States. But when you want to challenge the status quo, that's what you'll do on the negative side. You're saying a basketball player can make cupcakes. That's normal. Okay, so you're just like pushing the limits of the status quo. Okay. Now write down the word solvency. SOLVENCY. Solvency is how your plan is going to solve the problem that you present. Okay, so say the problem in the status quo is that we aren't sending any money to Cuba, okay? And then your solvency would say something along the lines of, our plan is going to solve the status quo because we were going to start sending money to Cuba. Okay. Does anyone have any questions about solvency? The solvency, solve plan, solvency. It's pretty easy. And even easier than solvency are advantages. So write down advantages. Okay, advantages are the benefits of passing your plan. Most cases will have 1 to 3 advantages. You guys will probably have 2 advantages in the novice case. Does anyone have a question about advantages? Okay, and probably one of the most, the least useful pieces of information I got last year as a novice was to not be a douchebag to your opponent. I mean, you want to be nice to your opponent, but that really has nothing to do with debate.
You don't want to be nice, you want to be polite.
Oh yeah, okay, you want to be polite to your opponent. You don't want to be accusing, as we talked about earlier. You want to be classy. And even, what I had a really hard time with last year is, during cross-ex, things would get really catty, and you'd be super sassy. And everyone would be like, no, you're wrong, I'm right, you know? You don't want to have that, mentality. You want to be confident in yourself, but you don't want to be overconfident. And as Miss Wedge will tell you all the time, it's not necessarily how confident you are, it's how confident you appear. Because when you appear confident, you start to gain confidence. But don't be a douchebag. Okay. End of next. And we can go back to the debate.
That was